in the kitchen this morning making biscuits. I got a little fire going, I got my tea, the kids are still asleep, and we're gonna have Gran's biscuits for breakfast. So this is my mother's mother, Gran from Western Kentucky. Apparently a legendary cook, but not much of one for sharing space in the kitchen, which created a little bit of a gap in our family's culinary knowledge. Yeah, I remember going to my grandma's house and eating boiled broccoli, not steamed, boiled. Boiled broccoli, which I guess is how her mom liked to drink pot liquor, which is a whole other conversation apart from biscuits. It's like the liquid out of the vegetables. After you boil the heck out of vegetables, you drink the water from the pot. Actually, I guess we don't need another video about how to make pot liquor because that is it. You drink the water out of a pot of boiled vegetables and it's loaded with nutrients. And actually not that bad. Anyhow, biscuits. Start by preheating the oven to 425 and then gather up dry ingredients. 2.5 cups of flour. White flour is what I'm using. White flour. Don't mess with whole wheat. This is biscuits. You want white flour. 1.5 teaspoons of salt. And then if you're using milk, you're going to use 1 teaspoon of baking powder. If you're using buttermilk, and I'll give you a hack if you don't have like real buttermilk, we can fake it. If you're going that direction, use 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda and 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. You're also going to need fat. Like my mom always used shortening, Crisco. I like lard or tallow, some kind of like solid animal fat. Maybe you could try it with coconut, like coconut oil, solid. I don't know. Play around with it, but you definitely are going to want a solid fat of some sort. 1/4 cup, 1/3 of a cup, somewhere in there. And then the liquid is going to be milk enough to make it sticky. That is a technical, like, official measurement, enough to make it sticky. And it's usually, I would guess, maybe around 1/2 cup. If you're, like, using buttermilk, then you just pour it in. If you're faking it with real milk and vinegar, you can, like, do about, I don't know what it would be, maybe 1 tablespoon of vinegar to 1/2 cup of milk and just mix that up and it sort of instantly acidifies it. Buttermilk is cultured milk, so you can create it by culturing some milk, or you can buy it off the shelf as buttermilk, or you can just add some acid to milk and it will basically do the same thing. And that's all you're gonna need. So we're off. Let's make some biscuits. Here we're gonna add the dry ingredients. We've measured out the flour, we've got the salt, the baking soda, the baking powder, stirred that all up, and now putting the fat in on top, and we're gonna mix it in. So my mom always cut the shortening in using 2 knives, but I prefer 10 clean fingers. And I just kind of rub it until it gets this sandy texture, and it'll hold a little bit of a shape and then crumble. That's how I judge that it's sufficiently. Okay, so here we're gonna do the fakey fake buttermilk. This is regular milk, whole milk, raw milk, and now I'm gonna put some vinegar in it and we're gonna see what happens. During the pandemic, you can do this with your kids and call it science homeschool. So check this out. Now it's getting thick. So that just acidifies the milk and will cause a better, fluffier reaction with the baking powder and baking soda, and will help the biscuits rise up to be nice and fluffy. So this is where we're at after stirring in the liquid. I had said 1/2 cup of milk because that's what the recipe I have. It says 1/2 cup question mark. It's more than 1/2 cup. You're going by result, not numbers here, right? Folkloric all the way. And now what I'm going to do is turn it out onto a floured surface. And my mother's very specific here. You knead it 15 times and cut it. So we'll come back here in a second. You'll see what that's. So here we are after kneading it 15 times, not 14, not 16, 15. You can see it kind of is a little bit springy and really smooth. It's not at all sticky, and it's very pliable. So now I'm going to kind of press it out Don't need a rolling pin necessarily. I suppose you could, but I've always just pressed it out to about a 1/2 inch thickness, and then we're gonna cut it into circles using whatever you got: drinking glass, mason jar, biscuit cutter, whatever. And we'll put those rounds on a baking sheet. I like to put them on a piece of parchment, but baking sheet, greased, whatever, and throw them in the oven. Okay, so my helper's awake now and she's cutting biscuits out. There they go. Good one. So as close together as you can manage, because the less you have to rework the dough, the better. You really don't want to over handle this dough, and you certainly don't want it to get too warm and it gets kind of clumpy. So we're going to cut as many as we can out of this circle and then kind of re-knead the little scraps and see if we can get a couple more out of it. Good job. These guys are about to go in the oven. We got 15 out of that batch with a jelly jar. How many you get and how long they're going to take to cook will depend on how big of a cutter you use. These being about 2.5 inches in diameter, we're going to cook for 10 minutes and then check on them. I want them to be just starting to get brown when I take them. So we just took these guys out of the oven, and while they were cooking, we scrambled up some eggs.
Yeah, and this is my food.
And that is your food. Breakfast is served. There you have it. Breakfast is ready and the time it took to drink a cup of tea. And hi. Kids are in the kitchen again, which is the way we like it. I hope you enjoy these. Be well, always.